Welcome to day 4. So today we're talking about captivating your audience. And this is all about making an awesome first impression. So here are my goals today. Make an awesome first impression. How to command authentic attention. Not all attention is created equal. And so I want you to do it in a genuine way that feels right to you. And then I also want to teach you how to captivate a room. Captivating an audience is a very hard concept to understand, so I hope that today I can break that down and show you how it works. But first, as always, we have a warm-up just to get your juices flowing a little bit, get us started for the day. So today we're going to be talking about being open to connection, thinking on our feet, and getting creative with stories. So our warm-up has to do exactly with that. What I want us to do is tell a story together. And this is an improv game. It's a storytelling improv game, so I want to demo it. Maggie, will you come up and demo with me? So here is how it works. I want you, and at home you can do this as well, I want you to turn to your partner and you're going to take turns telling a story. So it's going to go like this. I'm going to say once upon a time, and then Maggie might say there was an evil princess. And then it's my turn. Who knew an ogre? And you can only speak every other sentence. So you have to rely on your partner to tell the story. All right, so it's thinking on your feet. It's getting real creative. Maggie and I are going to demonstrate. Are you ready? Should I start or do you want to start?
You start.
Okay, so once upon a time.
There was this incredible lecture on
Creative Live.
And there was 1,000 people watching, but this one
was really special and decided that she wanted to
be the star of the show.
So she decided that she was going to log on to Creative Live chat.
And she was going to ask the most incredible question.
Which was?
About all the
amazing people and how she was going to make amazing change. All right. All right, thank you, Maggie. So that is, and it takes a lot of courage. That's why I didn't bring you, I was going to bring you all up on stage and I decided that was too much. I know, I saw like fear gesture. So I want you to think about how you can do this with each other. Play off of each other, be creative. It makes our brain open up. And at home, I want you to think about what's the most powerful story you ever heard. And I want you to write it in your workbook. So I want you to turn to your partner, and I want one of you to start with once upon a time and every other sentence. All right, ready? Turn to your partner.
Once upon a time.
Jason, yeah, I want you guys.
Oh, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, once upon a time.
There was this amazing instructor called Vanessa Van
Evans. And she took it upon herself to start hovering over her students.
But we loved her for it because she gave us a really strong presence.
And the insights that she was able to provide to her students
Were great fun because she's a great fun to be around.
You guys are such suck-ups.
I know, it's totally.
All right, Jason, your turn to start. Oh, no, you started once upon a time.
So, once upon a time.
there was a 6'7" woman
Who would
You
never
have to
out
go with her
someone
story.
But it was my turn.
It's your turn. It's your turn.
Once upon a time, in a land very close to
It's
home.
really hard, right? So what's the struggle that you're having?
No, it's
Instead of adding anything, I'm just passing on conjunctions back
so
to
it's
him.
actually
And also,
so I actually took improv like a few months ago. So I'm like, no, this is not how you
you
do
want to
it.
do it with me? You want to do it with me?
On stage? Sure.
Okay.
After yes it, damn it.
All right. Okay.
But I'm gonna go like crazy.
Good, do it. So, how hard or easy was this exercise? Hard. What is so hard about it? Yeah.
It's funny because when they're telling their part of the story, you're like, oh, wow, really? And you forget that you have to come up with something.
That right there is the captivating part of stories. That even when you're telling a story together, you yourself are just captivated by the sentence, and you realize, oh, it's my turn to speak, right? Which happened to me with Maggie, where she was like on creative, and I was like, yeah, on? Oh, right, it's my turn to go. Sashita, I really want you to come up and do it with me. because you took an improv class, and you said he said he's gonna go crazy. That's what he just said. He said I'm gonna go crazy, and I was like, well, you gotta come up on stage to do it with me. Are you ready? You want to start or should I start?
Sure. So once upon a time, there was a frog,
And his name was Fred,
and he met a frogess,
and she was a secret princess.
and they visited the planet Pluto.
On Pluto, though, they found something special.
It was a magical rock,
And this magical rock gave her the power of...
glowing in the dark.
And they took this rock and they got married and
Went around the solar system
made little glow-in-the-dark babies.
forever and ever.
All right. So I love this exercise because first it gets your stress pumping, right? Are we feeling like a little like, whew, that was hard? That is because it forces us out of our comfort zone. It makes us think about what the other person might say and what we have to say back, and we have to respond to them, which is exactly what a good interaction is all about. It's about responding to the other person, staying open-minded, and leveling up, right? Leveling up your game a little bit. Thank you guys, that was awesome. So we are now solidly on the path to connection, and this is the last segment we're gonna do in the hook. We've learned how to set our intention and to live purposefully. We've learned how to trigger dopamine to make that hook, those first few minutes, really pleasurable for the other person. Now we're about to learn how to captivate their attention. That's gonna take us up to the next level, which is deposit, which we're gonna start in the next few days. So I wanna start with our law today. So we are on our 6th people skill. These are the 33 essential people skills that everyone needs to know. And number 6 is to harvest stories. That we need to grow, collect, and share captivating stories. Now, stories are talked about a lot. Storytelling seems to be like a hot issue, especially online. And I read all these articles about the power of storytelling, but very rarely are we told why they work, so the science behind why a story is so powerful, and how to use a story in real life, how to make that tip applicable. So today I want to do both. I want to explain the power of stories and how we can use them in our interactions, both socially and professionally. There's 3 reasons why stories are powerful. First, they make you incredibly memorable. When you tell someone a story, they want to hear more. They light up. They want to hear what happens next, and that makes you a more memorable person. It also draws people to you. So when I learned how to use stories, I noticed something kind of funny happen when I would be in interactions. I would start to tell a story, and a story is like a campfire. It draws other people in the room to you. They hear a story, and people would start to, what was the story? What was the story? Because they want to hear what the story is too. We can't help it. We crave them. So stories is one way to draw attention to yourself in a positive way because you're captivating them authentically. And of course, stories trigger dopamine. That is, other than ourselves, stories is one of the highest dopamine-producing activities for our brains. Now I have a confession. I have a lot of confessions in this course. So when I was in college, I was a telemarketer. So one of the things that I like to do is put myself out of my comfort zone. I think that the only way to grow and change is to be in discomfort and challenging yourself. And so I thought of the most terrifying job I could possibly take was to call people, have them yell at me, and hang up on me. That sounded pretty terrifying to me. So I decided to take this job, and it was at Emory. I went to Emory University in Atlanta, and they have a telefund where you call alumni and you ask for money. So I sit down on my first day, and I'm like terrified. I'm like sweating. I'm like, why did I sign up for this? Why did I do it? And I start calling, and I'm doing terribly. Like people would yell at me, curse at me, and then hang up the phone. People would like curse my children and my family. It was horrible work. And this lasted for 4.5 weeks of just horribleness. And finally, the manager came over to me and he's like, look, you're trying the wrong way. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you're trying hard, but you're trying wrong. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I need you to stop selling them. Stop trying to sell them. Stop trying to ask for money. Just get on the phone and tell them stories. They're alumni. Tell them stories about your time at Emory. Tell them stories that are going to remind them of their own stories about their time at Emory. Make your only goal not to get money, not to ask for money, but just to tell them a really impactful story. It's like, just forget about the money part. So I got on the phone, and all I wanted to do was tell them my favorite things about Emory. So I started to tell them stories about my dorm, about traditions that were happening on campus, about what we did in Halloween, about what I was dressed up as, whatever I could think of. And slowly my phone calls started to change. Not only did I get donations, I got 4 times the donations that month, and I was the highest earner for 6 months in a row just using that. That wasn't actually the best part. The best part was that the length of my phone calls and the quality of my phone calls was like night and day. I actually looked forward to calling people because I loved hearing their stories. As I shared my experience at Emory, they would start to share their stories of Emory, and it felt like I was talking to old friends. And so instead of being a telemarketer, I was a storyteller. That's all I did. I got on the phone and I told stories, and if they gave money and they wanted to give to Emory, that was great. But it felt like such a better way to interact, a more authentic way to interact than just asking for money, asking for their business. So, why do stories work? MIT did a fascinating study where they had students go around campus and ask for favors. And they found that whenever the student paired the favor with a story, and it could be the most ridiculous story out there, whenever they did it, they doubled their success rate of getting that favor answered. What they asked for was if someone could order a pizza for them. And whenever they gave some kind of reason, even if it was an outrageous reason, that always worked. It doubled their success rate, and people saying, yes, of course, I'll order you a pizza and I'll pay for it for you. So I want to tell you one other story about the power of stories. So once upon a time, there was a struggling toy inventor, and he had really cute toys. He looked a little bit like this. And these toys were very cute, and he was very, very passionate about them. So he made them and he showed them to kids and he asked kids to buy them, but no one was buying these toys. He mortgaged his house, he went into bankruptcy, he put every last cent he had into these toys. Finally, as a last-ditch effort, he decided, you know what? I'm gonna give each of the toys a story. And that's exactly what he did. He gave them each a name. It says something like this. My name is Banjo. My birthday is October 25th, 2011. Searching for the perfect treat, something that is not too sweet. Great big bones will suit me fine. Now I can hardly wait to dine. So he put these little poems and stories, a birthday and a name on every baby. And he started with 8 Beanie Babies. Cubby, Chocolate, Pincher, Spot, Squealer, Splash, Raspberry, and Flash. And all of a sudden, the toys started flying off the shelves. People could not get enough of them. Nothing about the toy changed. All that changed was he gave them a story. It got to the point where he made over $700 million in 1 year selling these Beanie Babies. That is the power of stories, that stories make us connect with people. And here's exactly what happens in the brain when we think about stories. First, our brains light up. So what they did is they put people in fMRI machines and they had them listen to all kinds of things, recordings of stories, gossip, relationship, people talking about themselves, facts, and they found that activation was by far the highest when people were listening to stories. And what happened specifically is their brains matched the storytellers' brains. So they actually discovered this part by accident. They were doing research on chimpanzees' brain behavior. So chimps, they had them hooked up to fMRI machines. Actually, they had them hooked up to electrodes, and they were monitoring brain behavior. And during the break, one of the researchers went out to get an ice cream cone, and he was eating the ice cream cone in the research lab. And he looked over at the monitor, and he saw that the activity on one of the chimp's brains was going crazy. He was like, what's happening? The chimpanzee was watching the researcher eat the ice cream cone, and his brain was lighting up as if he was eating an ice cream cone. So what they found is that when we listen to a story, our brain activates as if we ourselves are in the story. That is why our brain loves it so much. That's why we love reading adventure novels. Even though we're sitting in our room or we're sitting on the porch, we actually feel like we're there with them. Our brain acts like we're there with them. And this is the third aspect of the power of stories, is not only does it activate our brains, not only does it make us feel like we're there, it syncs up our brain with the storyteller. So when we're sitting with a client and we want to get on the same page as them, the easiest and fastest way to do that is to sync up your brains with telling a story. When you tell a story, your brain pattern matches their brain pattern. So that is the easiest way to captivate your audience. You're literally syncing up your brains. This is, by the way, the power of the placebo effect. So the placebo effect is when you give someone medicine that's a sugar pill and you tell them, this is gonna cure all your ailments. And it works even though it's a sugar pill. The reason for that is because the small story of healing actually activates their brain to go into healing mode and then has a very high rate of solving the actual problem. So the placebo effect, which is not even real medicine, it's just a sugar pill, is really the power of stories, that our brain already goes into healing mode for us. So I want to talk about how to use the power of stories. Hopefully now I've convinced you that stories are awesome. So now, how do we use that in real life? I use something called the story formula. This is a very applicable way to use stories, and it is a 3-part formula. The first thing you do is you think of trigger words. Trigger words are words that come up in conversation regularly that trigger stories that you have in your story toolbox. Your story toolbox, which we're gonna build today, is your favorite, authentic, captivating, awesome stories that you bring out when you hear a trigger word. And then you follow it up with a roundup question. A roundup question brings it back to them. So they begin talking about themselves and you spur interesting conversation. So that was pretty theoretical. Let me show you how it works in action. So let me tell you a story from my story toolbox. So one thing that happens a lot is I hear interesting names. I meet people and they have an interesting, beautiful, or fascinating name. And that is a trigger word for me, interesting names. So what I say is, you know, the most interesting name I ever heard was when I was in elementary school. Actually, it was 2 different names. It was Male and Famale, as in male with an accent and female with an accent. And in school, we always wondered, why did these twins, they were a set of twins, why they had the names Male and Famale. And rumor had it that the dad was so excited to get twins and surprised, because they weren't expecting twins, that he confused the lines on the birth certificate between male and female and names. We'll never know if that was true or not, but I always thought that was the most interesting name I ever heard. What's the most interesting name that you've ever heard? So that's a story from my story toolbox, which I bring up when it's a gentle transition to when I hear an interesting name, and then I bring it back to them. And people always have an interesting name story to tell you. Everyone's heard an interesting name at some point in their life, and they will tell you the story of that name. So that's just a quick example of how that works in action. So I want us to start building our story toolbox. So the first thing I want us to do is brainstorm trigger words. So I want us to talk about what are words that come up all the time in conversation. All the time. Come up regularly. Weather. Thank you. What else?
The day.
Day. Did I hear jobs? Did I hear job? Did I make that up? Job. Okay, yes. What else?
Traffic.
Traffic. Yes. What else comes up a lot?
Money.
Money.
Lack of it.
Lack of it. I'll put it in parentheses. We don't have any money. What else comes up a lot in conversation?
Pets.
Sports, pets. I love it. Sports games come up all the time. Pets. What else?
Clothing, what they're wearing.
Clothing. Yeah, accessories. So I'm going to say fashion. What else?
Gas prices.
Uh-oh, what?
Gas prices.
Gas prices. Totally.
Yes.
What else?
Kids.
Family and kids. Very good. Yeah. That's a lot of them. Any others we can think of? No, that's pretty good. Okay. So these are very popular trigger words. So what I want us to do is come up with stories for each and every one of those trigger words. Authentic, natural stories that come up right there. So I actually picked one, which we already named, which is traffic. So let's say that the word is traffic. Then you want to have a gentle transition to a story. So I'm going to give us a prompt just to get us started, okay? So the prompt is, what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen someone do in their car? So this is actually part of my story toolbox. So when someone says, oh, the traffic was terrible, which often comes up in conversation, I'll be like, you know, one time I was sitting in traffic and I saw one of the weirdest things I've ever noticed someone do in traffic. I was sitting on the 405 and I see this woman and she's like kind of doing these weird behaviors. And I'm like pulling up next, I'm like trying to see, like pulling up next to her, like what is she doing? Made the commute go really fast. And she was painting her toenails in the car, right? And I'm like, are you kidding me? I almost rolled down my window and I was like, stop painting your nails. But I didn't do it. So what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen someone do in a car? Right? So that's a very quick, very funny story about a real experience that I had in a car. So what's the weirdest thing you ever saw someone do in a car? Or in traffic, or in a commute? I saw, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I mean, people just singing out loud. I mean, and that's actually usually me.
Yeah, so you do the
I
weirdest
might
thing
be
you've ever
weird.
seen in a car.
Yeah.
I love it. People rocking out, practicing for American Idol. Yes. What else? Weird things we've seen in cars. Or what's the worst commute you've ever been in?
I commute every day in the casual carpool, so I pick up a stranger every single morning on my way to work. And I'm so disappointed at the quality of the stories because there aren't any yet to tell.
There aren't any good ones?
No, but wouldn't you think there would be by now? Because I've been doing this for about 6
That
months.
is the perfect story. That is the perfect story to that. That is saying, I was looking for good stories, I pick up random people, and you'd be amazed, there are no good stories from it. People are so normal, average, and nice, which is a great segue into conversation. All right, then the most important part of the story toolbox is ending with great follow-up questions. The biggest mistake I see people make when they tell stories is they'll tell a story and they just end it, and there's sort of like a laugh or an awkward pause, and you're like, what to do next? Okay, I'm so awkward. Like, right? That happens. So you have to end your story with a great follow-up question. And the reason for this is because you want to keep that dopamine flowing, and so you want to turn it back to them. Hear what they have to say, what their opinion is. How can you be an adder, not a subtractor, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. So after this, have you seen anyone try to do something odd during their commute? Do you have a bad commute? What's your commute like? Do you drive? Do you walk? Do you bike? Do you take the streetcar? Right? Any of those follow-up questions would work. All right. A special note here is that these are not long stories. Okay? I'm not talking about 5 or 10-minute stories. Usually these stories are 15 to 30 seconds. At the most, they're 2 minutes. Now, we love telling stories as much as we like listening to stories, so it's important we keep them short, because otherwise you tend to lose people, right? If you're talking for too long, you can't check in with them. So I want you to practice short, 15 to 2-minute stories. I also want you to use this course. So I want you to use this course as a storytelling opportunity. Every day, the reason why I ask you what the most interesting thing you learned today is because I'm trying to create stories for you. I want you to think of aha moments, interesting studies that you've heard, things that clicked for you. Those are all stories that you can put in your story toolbox, right? Even if you ask a weird conversation starter and someone doesn't reply the way you want, you can say, you know, I did it while I took this crazy people skills course. Oh, what's a people skills course, right? Even that in itself is a way that you can use this course as a story for your story toolbox. What you can also do, and what I do, is I have a note in my phone where when I experience an interesting story or I hear an interesting fact or tidbit or I see a cool YouTube video or read a news story, I'll put it in my phone under a note that says stories as a way to remember some of those stories. So in your workbook, I've created an entire chart of trigger words and prompts for you. So we have hometown, names, job, adventure, new activity, holidays, parties, books, news. I have almost every trigger word that could come up in conversation and prompts for you to think about what your stories are around those trigger words to help you start to build your own story toolbox, which we're going to start right now. Let's start with names, right? I talked about an interesting name story. So I want us to come up with some stories right now for our story toolbox. So I want you to turn to your partner, and I'm going to have someone come up on stage, and I'll do it with them. What is the most interesting name you ever heard? What's your name story? How did you get your name? That could be your name story. What's a time you forgot someone's name and it was really awkward? I want you to think of a potential story around the trigger word of interesting names. Okay, so let's turn to our partner and you can brainstorm some stories. Does someone want to? Oh yes, JKO and Jason, I love it.
You know that one, or you want Jason to come up? There we go.
Oh, okay. All right. Mine might not be family friendly, but
I'll go for it anyway.
All right. So
I've heard it all before.
yeah. So the most interesting name I ever heard. I went to school with a kid, Vietnamese kid. His name is spelled P-H-U-C. So every single time we would go
Like Fabrizio or something like that. And he goes by Fab, which I think is cool.
That's pretty cool. Where'd you know?
A way to honor all the strong women that I
What's the middle name?
Marie.
Oh, that's lovely.
Marguerite, Marion, Elsie, Marion, Marguerite, Marita, and Marie. Isn't that amazing?
Beautiful. Okay, so what's the follow-up question to that amazing story?
How did you get your name?
Love it.
Okay,
That's
good.
it. I might have you tell that on stage. All right.
You know, I always wanted meaning behind my name, but when I would ask my parents why I was named, I was yearning for this meaning, this connection. And it was always like, oh, I just liked it. And it was very flat.
Now, could I say at this point, what would you have picked? If
I
you could
love
have
it.
picked your name?
Oh my God, I love it.
You know, I always just want the connection. And so I've never really thought about a specific name that I would want because I do like my name.
Yeah.
And that's ironic because growing up, for whatever reason, I just didn't like women's names that had a root in a male name. And it wasn't until I was about 20 that I internalized that my name is a male.
You didn't realize
within no, I realized it, but I didn't group it in with the names that I didn't like. And I was like, wait a minute, I've been like against all of these other names, but it's my name.
I love that. All right. So, what did you learn about the person you were talking to? What did you learn about them? I want to hear some interesting tidbits that you learned.
That some people don't think of names.
That's my story.
Aww. So, what would you say back to that? What did you say back to that?
She told me another one.
All right. So you told another story. Fabulous. I love it. Michael, what did you learn?
I learned that Oriana has a sister called Tatiana, which is a Russian name.
Ah. Are you Russian?
No.
Well, that's an interesting set of questions then.
No, so it's because the names match. And I was first, so I'm Italian. My name is Italian because of my dad's family being Italian. And then they picked the name that matched.
I love it. So they're right there. It's an interesting set of conversation back and forth. I learned about you. I learned that you're not Russian or Italian. Like, it's a very cool set of stories. And already we're past social scripts. Already her dopamine is triggered. Already you become more memorable because you've engaged in an interesting conversation. I would actually love you guys to come up and share your stories because I thought they were really great. So, Allie, if you want to share your story, come on up.
Okay.
Allie, if you want to share the story that you told and the follow-up question, yeah, come on up. So what was the question that you asked, and then what was the story that you told?
Was she just started?
Oh, wait, go ahead.
I just started talking.
Perfect.
I got my name, Alice Elizabeth. It's my grandmother's name. And while my whole life, I loved being named after this great, strong woman that was such an influence in my mother's life. And we loved it so much that we named my daughter after her grandmother. And I was actually able to combine all four grandmothers' names, Marita, Marguerite, Marion, and Marie, into her middle name. And so as a way to honor the strong women in her life.
And your follow-up question was?
How did you get your name?
And I said that I always wanted a deep connection with my name, sort of like a family lineage or something that I could connect with. And I would ask my parents, and they would just say, oh, we just liked it. And there was like this flat, and it was just, I always yearned for it. And then you asked.
Well, if you could have picked your name, what would you have picked?
And I said, well, I just always wanted that connection, but you know, I liked my name, so I didn't want a different name. But it was ironic because growing up, for whatever reason, I just didn't like names, female names that had a root and like a male root name with a vowel at the end to make it female. And it wasn't until I got to be like 20 that I realized my name falls in the bucket of names that I don't like. So, I mean, I knew that it was Eric and Erica, but I had never associated that, and it was a very weird moment.
So that, which was the most beautiful conversation, back and forth. They learn about each other. You can sit down, thank you so much. They learn about each other, they're hearing about names, there's like a little bit of laughter. We giggled about how she didn't realize that Eric and Erica were the male and female. So the reason why these work is because you have to have a follow-up question, right? You have to tie it back to them, and they're short, interesting, real stories. All right, a quick example. Oh, sorry, do you have a question? Yeah.
I'm terrified of stories.
Tell me why.
I don't really know. I think potentially because I've told so many stories that have just like not been well received, that like when we did the first exercise, the finishing each other's sentences,
Yes.
that went really well and smooth, and we were laughing and having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think I like to like tell stories in partnership almost. But there's something that terrifies me about, I think maybe all eyes on me, and maybe I start rambling.
So I want you to start with, and we're going to learn about this in segment 15, but so it's good we're talking about it now, is when we adopt new habits, there's 4 different stages, right? It's awareness, discomfort, adoption, and assimilation, right? So right now we're in awareness mode. We're just learning the new concepts. Now we're getting into discomfort. When I make you practice, I'm making you really uncomfortable, right? I'm pushing you out of your comfort zone, I'm making you do it. The adoption phase comes when you can do low pressure practice. So what you're talking about is sharing a story and having it potentially fall flat, which is, that would scare me too. So what I want you to do, and this is why we have this course and at home, I want you to practice your stories in low pressure environments. So that's why we have a story toolbox. It's stories that are your go-to stories. You've told them before, you know your timing, and you feel comfortable with them. In fact, you're excited to tell them because you know that they work. So at the end of today, I want to actually talk about which friends you want to practice with outside of today, where you can practice and hone your stories to find the ones that you love to tell. Not that you're afraid to tell the stories that you're like, oh, that reminds me of a great story. Let me tell it to you, right? So it's that low pressure practice. I love it. And we're going to talk more about the discomfort phase of learning in segment 15. Sorry, that's so far away. Yes. So I gave away the answer. Okay, don't look at it yet. It's kind of an obvious answer though. All right, so which do you prefer? This is 2 charity options. A, any money that you donate will go to Rokia, a 7-year-old girl who lives in Mali in Africa. Rokia is desperately poor and faces a threat of severe hunger, even starvation. Or B, food shortages in Malawi are affecting more than 3 million children. In Zambia, severe rainfall deficits have resulted in a 42% drop in maize production from 2000. Which one would you choose? Obviously A, right? The story is there. And Save the Children and a lot of nonprofits have figured out that the power of stories helps people connect with the people that they're donating to. So they always add stories now to each of their causes. It's a very quick example. I want to very briefly, and in your workbook I have a couple of pages on this, talk about the art of storytelling, right? What makes a good story? There are actually a couple different parts to a good story. And again, I have a detailed description of this, but I want to briefly go over it. Always you want to start a story with a hook. A hook is a question, a provocative statement, or a curiosity. For example, in my name story, I said, the most interesting name I've ever heard was in elementary school, right? And instantly someone thinks, what was it? Right? Even when you said, I combined your daughter's middle name to include all 4 grandmothers, at first when you said that, you didn't tell me the name. And I went, what's the name? Because I was dying to know what the name was. That actually is the perfect hook, statement, or curiosity that engages someone. The second phase is to highlight some kind of a struggle. This can be looking for a resolution or being faced with a challenge. For example, in my name story, I said, we all wondered why they could possibly be named Male and Famale. That sets up a question of, well, why? Right? It's highlighting a challenge. You can do that in a very, very short amount of time. And then the third aspect is painting with quality words. So using words that get people's imagination going. Under 2 minutes, you can use a lot of exciting words. Let me give you an example of the art of storytelling. So here's another story from my story toolbox. So the trigger word is summer. So when anyone talks about summer vacations, summer plans, what they're doing over the summer, what they did over the summer, I always bring up, summer always reminds me of the worst and best summer of my life, which is my hook, because instantly you're like, what's the best and worst summer of your life? Here's the struggle. When I was 6, my brother almost ruined our summer plans when he broke his arm. So we had to get super creative. One thing that happened in our backyard is we had these rocks, and when you lifted up the rocks, there were these little roly-poly bugs. And we loved those roly-poly bugs. And we would roll them down his cast of his broken arm. Because to us, we thought this was a great bug ecosystem, his cast. Because what would happen was we'd roll the bugs down the cast, and sometimes they would crawl back up later in the day, which was really fun for us, not my mom, or they would just stay down there. And we thought, they're probably living down there. It's their own little home ecosystem of roly-poly bugs. Really what was probably happening is they were getting caught in the gauze and dying. Anyway, so what we decided to do was we shoved leaves and mud and dirt into his cast so that they could live really nicely in his arm. The problem is, after a few weeks, he really started to smell. Like really bad, he started to smell because he had a big case of encased dirt and bugs. My mom would shower him and be like, why do you still smell? How could you possibly smell? So we brought him to the doctor. They cut open his cast and opened it up, and it was all filled with bugs and dead carcasses. So my follow-up question to that is, what did you do growing up in the summer? Right? What were your summers like? And that also is a very sneaky way to ask the question, where did you grow up? But it's a much better question than where did you grow up, because where did you grow up is Los Angeles. Right? And they say, oh, I grew up in Los Angeles, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and they tell you the story. This is a very quick example of how you can use hook, challenge, and painting with words.
I have another question.
Yeah.
So with the trigger word, would it be like the sentence that goes along with that trigger word? Like if I said, oh, I love summer.
Yeah.
Is that when you then?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, oh, I love summer. You know, summer reminds me of the best and worst summer of my life.
Okay.
Exactly like that. It's a gentle transition, right? If they're talking, you don't want to be like, wait. I got to tell you a story. You just said my trigger word, right? It's a okay. I mean, you could do that. I'm sure it would be a very interesting conversation. It's a gentle transition, yeah.
If you're talking with someone that never stops talking.
Yes. Oh, goodness. Yes. Let's talk about that in Human Vampires.
Okay.
Human Vampires, a never stop talker. That's a little bit different than you telling stories because they won't listen to your stories anyway, typically. We're going to get to that one. Ooh, rough. All right, so I want to do one more prompt. The trigger word is holiday. Okay, when people talk about the holiday plans, and this could be any holiday, Halloween, Christmas, Easter, some holiday that's coming up, the holiday weekend, what kind of prompts can you think of? So here are a couple. Special holiday traditions that you have. What's your favorite holiday and why? What was the best or worst holiday vacation? These are all prompts for you to start thinking about what's your holiday story that you like to tell. So I want you to turn to your partner and think about how you can answer one of these questions to tell a good story. Okay? Ready? Go.
What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas. So funny story about Christmas. One year for Christmas, I was living in London at the time, and there was this big, a 2-hour snowstorm at Heathrow. I don't know if you remember that. And my flight got canceled. I had to fly on Christmas Day from London to California, and I managed to make it home for Christmas dinner. It was, say about 4 years ago.
Oh, 2, 3, yeah.
Yeah,
I do remember that year.
Oh my
I was
God.
in London that year.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. 2 hours of snow and it shut down the whole thing. Yeah.
The Brits can't cope with snow at all,
Yeah.
right? Well, unless it's the wrong kind of snow.
Yes, exactly. So what about you? What's your favorite holiday story?
I try to avoid
Shrimp and all the seafood there, and then just moving forward. I mean, we just made it as a tradition that hey, we have to have a seafood.
the world is going somewhere and then having to try and
You have seafood.
find something to do on Christmas Day on your own.
Yeah.
So I usually try and time it so I'm actually traveling.
Right. Cool.
Okay, so you have to share I overheard this story and I was like, what? It totally captivated me into your story. So share the story that you just told, please.
Oh, I was just telling him, we don't have a lot of traditions and stuff, but I just thought it was funny. My middle son, about 4 years ago for his birthday, instead of having us sing happy birthday, he started this new tradition where we sing and dance to Bootylicious. I mean, just out of nowhere, you know? And it sparks everything up.
So for birthdays,
So
just
now,
to get
yeah,
this
we do
clear,
it every year now.
You always sing Bootylicious to someone's birthday, which I love.
Yeah.
So by the way, I heard that story over 2 chairs. I heard, yeah, we sing Bootylicious for birthdays. And I was like, what? Like, you must tell me this story. That is the power of stories, that they captivate you. And that's hilarious. And I also just learned that he's a dad. right? I didn't, instead of, so what's your family? Do you have any kids? Where do they live, right? It's a much better way to find out about someone. So I want to give a very brief story about how stories, when I learned the power of stories in my professional life. So I teach body language and I teach people skills, and I'm very heavily science-based. I love the science. I'm a total science geek. So I used to give presentations that were like hitting people over the head with graphs and charts and pheromones and brain scans, and they were just loaded with science. And I, thought this was great because that's how I learn. And I ask for surveys after I speak where I get ratings and I ask for feedback, and they were always okay. One time, I showed up at an event and they could not get the technology to work. So my computer, we couldn't plug in my slide deck to show overhead. So they're like, you're just gonna have to give the presentation from memory. I was like, now I'd given the presentation, I don't know, maybe 50 times. So I knew it pretty well, but I definitely couldn't show charts. I couldn't show brain scans. I didn't remember all the numbers. So basically I had to get up on stage and share case studies, stories, and testimonials. That presentation, which I thought I bombed, right? I was like, I got up there and I told a whole bunch of stories about the importance of body language. No one's gonna care. Actually, what happened is my ratings went through the roof. They asked me to come back and give the presentation with my slides, but what I realized is actually telling stories was much more powerful than sharing a bunch of science. So that's when I started incorporating stories into my presentations because it makes you more persuasive. It gets the audience's brain synced up with yours. So in action, this works, of course, at networking events and parties, but it also works in social media and in your business and in your pitches. So we've been talking a lot about the power of stories in social situations. I want to talk for a second about how to use stories professionally for your businesses. Features don't really sell, benefits don't really sell, which is usually the first thing we tell people about our work. Here are the benefits, here are the features. What sells are stories. So what I want us to do is I want us to think about how can you tell a story about your product, service, or business. Here are a couple of ideas for you. How you got started. So what motivated you to start your product, business, or service? How it's used. Do you have a story testimonial that you can use that would show, not tell, the power of your service? How successful it's been. So the story of your success. Does anyone have a story about how they got started on their product that they want to share right now about what would get people interested in what got you started? Otherwise, I can share mine, but mine's not as interesting. So I'm a recovering awkward person, and I had so much trouble interacting with people that I would show up at events and be so terrified and couldn't talk to people that I would just go hide in the bathroom or pretend to text people. And I realized that I was not going to grow my business if I was terrified of people. And so for me, I started searching for a way that a situational introvert could comfortably talk to people. It's a very, very short story. And then I would usually ask, how did you get started in your line of work? That would be my roundup question, to hear their success story. Now, if it's a pitch, you can continue on with your pitch. But I want you to think about it. I want you to turn to your partner, and I want you to answer one of these questions. What's a way that you can share a story about what you do? And this works, by the way, whether you work for yourself or you work for someone else. At home, you have the luxury of filling out all the questions. So in your workbook, I want you to go through and start answering all the story toolbox questions and filling them in, some for your personal life and some for your professional life. All right, so just turn to your partner and do a quick story about your business.
Then I moved to London in 2008, and I had to continue doing that on my own. And I ended up starting a gym doing that on my own because there was nobody out there that was coaching it the same way. So I started that gym, and it ended up, the gym grew so fast that I ended up quitting my job that I moved to London for. And it kept me in London probably 3 or 4 years longer than I was going to be there. And then I finally moved back here and started another gym.
So fantastic. How did you make that transition from the UK business back to here? Did you find it easy just to walk in and do it again?
It was a lot easier to get started because I already knew what to do.
Right.
And I had enough people involved with that one that I was able to kind of let that one go and come back here. Because, I mean, as you know, California has got a lot of benefits over living in the UK.
Yeah, quite a few. So were you able to sell the British business?
Working on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I still own
I
it.
didn't know, you got started in the UK?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So cool. All right.
Yeah.
So what did you learn about the other person what story did they tell you or capture? What did you hear? Yes.
I learned about how Erica made her career transition from such different careers.
I'm from engineer to nutritional coach, right? Which is fantastic. And what was your follow-up question? Did you have one?
We didn't get to the end of the story.
Yet. So what would be a follow-up question for you?
Is it like, what's your favorite food?
Oh, so you could ask one about nutrition. You could also say, have you ever gone through a career transition? Right? Has that ever happened for you? Have you ever been with someone who's been through a career transition? That would be a great question to see where she's at. It's better than what do you do?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so before we get into our challenge, which is going to be implementing some of these stories, I want to talk about what's coming up next. So we are finally moving up a step in the connection path. Yeah, woo! So we are going from hook to deposit. So we are taking it up a step. Moving past the first impression, we've made that awesome first impression, we've captivated their attention. Now how do we keep it and dive a little bit deeper? And we're gonna do that with creating spark, unleashing your inner rock star or diva, whatever you got rockin', I wanna show it. Never being boring again, and increasing your impact on the people that you are interacting with. And then we're gonna talk about the art of conversation. So this is being a master conversationalist, mastering the art of small talk, taking conversations to the next level. So going a little bit deeper with our interactions and how to engage people, which is the first step to connection. All right, our challenge for today. So our challenge is help us put all of our learning into action. Number one, I want you to add 3 stories to your story toolbox using the workbook prompts that I have in your workbook. I want you to add 3 different ones. And there's, I think, over 30 questions in there. So if you can answer just 3, that's what I want you to do today. Then I want you to add 1 story to your pitch, your website, or your social media. I want you to think about how you can add the power of stories somewhere in your business. It can be written online, or you can think about what do you say when you pitch a client, what story can you tell them to captivate them. We are ready for the final part of what the most important thing we learned today is. And the reason why we do this is because it solidifies our learning. At home, I want you to take just 20 seconds and write down what the most important thing you learned is. JK, if you want to come up on stage with me, you can. We can talk about what we learned. Ali, I saw your hand pop up. I love it.
The idea of having these stories prepared ahead of time, I would have thought that would make them sound canned. But today I learned just the opposite.
Yeah, it actually makes you get excited to tell them.
Yes.
And so you're so excited to tell them that passion comes out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There's no small stories as long as they're effective in what you're talking about. I always thought you have to have these grand stories that are just, crazy and over the top, but they don't have to be.
Simple is actually better. I love it. Yeah, Jason.
Yeah, so the same thing, that the stories can be really small, but it's really about what happens after the stories where it starts to get really interesting.
Yeah, and hopefully throughout this course, you're going to be using every segment to create more stories. Every time we talk about what the most important thing you learned today is, I want you to think about what's a fact that you learned that you can share in a story about your experience taking this course or watching this course.
That's an experience in itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I must say, today's actually been really interesting for me. I felt I've not learned so much in this segment because this is something I genuinely try to practice myself.
Yeah.
This is how I got into broadcasting and how I got into
You're a
writing
storyteller.
by telling stories.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. So to hear your affirmation here as part of this segment and have to learn that perhaps I am doing something right.
You're doing a lot.
Has been really good. That's fantastic. So we want to hear your stories too. Share them on Twitter. We'd love to hear more from you. We're using the hashtag I've forgotten.
We're using the hashtag people skills, and
People
remember
skills, there you go.
that we're going to gift my Dating an Entrepreneur course to people who do this for all 30 days, the best answers that we see on Twitter.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from those. But we've got a lot more to come. But for today, thanks so much to Vanessa Van Edwards. But stay with us because we've got another segment to come. Same time, same place tomorrow. We'll see you then.